What's up, everybody? My name is Brian, and like the title says, I want to teach you how to win at gambling. Over the past 8 or so years since I graduated from Harvard Law School, I've been gambling part-time and making a lot of money at it. I've actually made over $1 million at this point gambling. That hasn't been one lucky win or some huge score. It's been grinding it out over the course of years, honing my craft, honing my skills, and getting really good at it. And the fact is, you can win at gambling, but it's incredibly hard. And I want to teach you the tips and tricks that will help you either become a better winner if you're already winning, or start winning if you're losing, or lose less, or to quit altogether if gambling's not for you. Because that's the reality, and the answer for a lot of people is that it's just not for some people, given all the risk and the downside. And there's two ways to do gambling successfully. The first is to do it for profit, and the second is to do it for entertainment. If you're doing it for profit, you have to set aside an amount of money, your bankroll, that you're trying to invest and grow and scale, right? And that's like any other investment. It has to be an amount of money that you can lose. Similarly, but another side of the coin there is if you're gambling for fun, you have to set aside an amount of money that you know you're probably going to lose and make that your entertainment budget. And then once you lose that, you need to stop. So let's first talk about gambling games you can actually win at. And I don't mean games you can win at in a night or games you can win at in a weekend, but I mean games you can sustainably turn a profit in long term. The first of these is blackjack, but you can only win at blackjack by counting cards. And counting cards, for those of you who don't know, is just looking at every card that comes out and you assign it a number based on if it helps you or hurts you. So face cards are helpful cards for the player, so every face card that comes out, it actually hurts you because it means there's less face cards left in the deck, whereas lower cards are bad for you as a player when they come out, so every lower card that comes out, it helps you in future hands. So basically you're going to keep count of how many low cards and how many high cards have come out. When there's a lot of high cards remaining in the deck, you're going to end up betting more. And by doing this, you can actually turn the odds in your favor. If you're just playing basic strategy and not counting cards, hitting when you're supposed to hit, staying when you're supposed to stay, you still cannot get the odds in your favor. You're giving up about 1% to the house, which means on average, in the long term, you're going to lose 1% of everything that you bet, which is obviously not good. And counting cards, just so you know, it's very difficult. It's not simple, and it's a lot of pressure. And then when you have the count in your favor, you have to be able to bet sizably and then dial your bets back when the count's not in your favor. So it's not an easy thing to do, just so you know. And casinos are very wise to it. If they know you're doing it, they'll do everything they can to prevent you from playing and kick you out. So it's hard to win at gambling that way. The second way you can win at gambling is poker. And this way you can actually win because you're not playing against the house. You're actually playing against other players. So you're getting the odds in your favor by making essentially another player make a bad negative expected value bet against you in a game, right? So say you're a substantial favorite to win a hand and you bet your hand and they call you, right? They still could win the hand, they still have a chance to win, but they have a much less say you're 80% and they're 20%, right? That means they're going to still win some of the time, but over the long term, you're going to crush and you're going to win. The third way you can actually win at gambling is through sports betting. And sports betting, there are bets that the house will put up that are positive expected value that you can actually win at, but it's hard to find those. You have to be selective, you have to be disciplined, and you have to sort through a lot of stuff. So I'm going to make plenty of more videos about how you actually win at sports betting, all the principles associated with that, because there's a bunch of stuff that goes into that. But suffice it to say, for now, that's one of the 3 ways that you can win gambling. The other side of the coin is there are a ton of ways that you can lose gambling. You've probably heard the phrase, the house always wins. And a more accurate version of this phrase would be, in basically every casino game, over the long term, the house will always win. Over the short term, of course, you can win at gambling. That's how they suck you in. That's how they get you to put your bet down. It's not like every time you put a bet down, you lose. Otherwise, no one would play, right? The point is that all these games in the casino, whether you're talking about craps, roulette, whatever it is, you are going to lose. The longer you stay there, the more you are going to lose on average. And that's how they win. They win in the aggregate. They don't care if one person puts a bet down and wins, because they know that they're all about volume. The more people that bet, the more they win long term. Take roulette as a great example. The house edge in roulette is about 5%, which means that over the long term, every dollar you put down, the casino will get 5% of that. So if you're betting $100 on average and you bet 100 times, the casino is going to win 5% every time you bet. Times 100, they're going to win $500 of your money over 100 bets on average, which is pretty brutal if you think about it. But look at it the other way. When you put your bet money $100 down on black and you hit black, you get paid 100. So that's why people do it, right? It's exciting, it's fun, it's thrilling, you can win. But over the long term, the odds are going to weigh on you and you're going to lose. And that's true of basically every game in the casino. So just know that you can very easily look up all the house edges on every game, on every bet. They're easily searchable on the internet. And if you're going to play those games, just know that you can't win over the long term. It's a negative expected value proposition. So my advice, if you're playing those games, is to do it for entertainment only. Do not do it for profit. I cannot emphasize that enough. Do not play casino games to make money. Don't do it, because over the long term, you're going to lose. If you stay there, you're going to lose. I know it's thrilling, I know it's exciting, but just take it as entertainment money. Count the money as a loss. And then if you win, be happy that you won. And if you lost, be happy that you had some fun. Personally, I don't particularly like playing those games because I get super frustrated as someone that gambles for a profit, losing, and someone that spends a lot of time grinding it out and making money gambling at poker and sports betting. It's hard for me to place those bets that I know are losing bets because I work really hard to find winning bets. In sports betting and in poker and in counting cards and blackjack, what you're really doing is you're becoming the house. You're putting the odds in your favor. You're the one with that 5% edge over the long term. You're the one that, sure, you might lose your bets in the short term. Sure, you might have a few bets in a row that you lose. But over the long term, you are going to make money. So winning gambling is all about volume, and that's true whether you're the casino on the side of having the odds in your favor, or whether you're the player who's actually been able to switch the odds in your favor. It's all about volume, and that's why the casino lets a bunch of people in and lets a bunch of people play. And it's another thing it's about is discipline and bankroll management, which means that you have to have an amount of money that you gamble, and you have to manage the risk, because you can't put, even if you have a great bet, for example, say you're 90% to win, right? You wouldn't put all your money in the world on one bet if you were 90% to win, because you have a 10% chance of losing all the money in the world. But obviously it's a great bet, you're 90% chance to win, right? So you want to put a substantial amount of money on that bet that was proportionate with the risk and the chance you win and the chance that you can place the bet again and a few other things. Well, that's called the Kelly criterion, and there's a lot of math involved in that, but basically, again, just for now, it's sufficient to say you want, when you're gambling for profit, you want to have a bankroll, which is just a pool of money that you're willing to lose and willing to risk, but that you're planning on growing long term and scaling long term. So with all that said, those are some of the basic concepts of gambling. And let's get into the story now, and let's get into some of the higher level concepts. All right, so I want to come back to this video and wrap it up with a third principle of gambling that's critical, but that's not talked about honestly enough, and that's this. You need to, as much as possible, keep your emotions out of the game. And as a corollary of that, you need to keep the game out of your emotions. And what do I mean by that? Well, keeping the game out of your emotions means that gambling is really hard and it's really frustrating. It can be a very emotionally trying experience and difficult experience. So as much as possible, you do not want your gambling to affect your emotions, and that's true whether you're doing it for fun or for profit. So if you're doing it for fun, please don't bet so much that it's affecting your emotions negatively, especially. You don't want to do it just for that high that you can get from it, because the reality is the low is worse than the high, I promise. I'm not saying you can't have fun gambling. I'm not saying you can't get entertained by it, but don't do it for validation. Don't do it for a high, because the reality is you're probably going to hit a low that's much worse than the high. And if you keep it within boundaries and you keep it reasonable, then you can still have fun and entertain yourself. And as related to that, if you're doing it for a profit, if you're doing it long-term sustainably, the reality is that you can't control the short term, even if you're a long-term winner. You're going to have periods, days, weeks, even sometimes months, where you're going to lose money. And I cannot tell you how frustrating it is to be world-class at something and just to eat loss after loss after loss after loss. And that's part of gambling and winning, is that you have to accept that there's short-term variance and you're not going to win all the time. So the more you let it affect your emotions and the more you're trying to validate yourself or prove something through it, the more you're constantly going to be disappointed. So you need to separate your own emotions and your own feelings from the gambling itself, because otherwise you're going to be constantly frustrated. So related to that, like I said, is you don't want your emotions to affect your gambling. And by that I mean you don't want your feelings to change or alter what you're going to bet, whether that's the type of bet or the amount. And I cannot tell you the number of times when I've made that mistake, when I've been on a winning streak and I wanted to keep it going, I wanted to feel that high more, and I made a bet that wasn't the right value, and then it's frustrating and disappointing. Or the alternative of that, I was on a losing streak and I wanted the losing streak to stop, and I made a bet to try to help get out of it, and it wasn't the right bet, it wasn't the right value, right? So you need to bet based on value, not based on emotion. And that is so hard, especially when you're gambling for a profit, because you're going to go through those things that are called downswings, like I said, which are long-term sustained losing periods when you're a long-term winner. And in these downswings, I've had really bad ones. I've had some that were over 50K, and I can tell you that you wake up in the morning and you just want to start winning. It's a very daunting task to feel like you need to climb out of a giant hole. And I've always climbed out of those holes in those downswings. It's never been a problem long term, but the only way that I've done it is by sticking to value and stopping the emotional negativity and just focusing on trying to make good bet after good bet after good bet after value, and not worrying about the results so much and just focusing on the process, because that's really what it's about when you're gambling long term and successfully. It's about process, it's about value. And if you can get the numbers in your favor, you're doing, like I said, you're doing the exact same thing the casino's doing. And that's why those places are built, and that's how you build your bankroll, the exact same way. So I'll wrap up by saying that I'm excited to share more with you all. I couldn't be more pumped to be on YouTube now, and I think there's a lot that I can share that can help you, like I said, win more gambling or lose less, and especially when it comes to sports betting or poker. So I'm really pumped to share that, and we're just getting started. So let's keep it going.